Welcome to the Heartification Podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. He is an artist and a former hockey player. Please welcome my next guest, Mike Wells.
Hi, how are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
Yeah, I would say to define art in my sense would be something that is completely expressive through your soul, and that you'd have to have the desire to create something, whether it's through subject matter or just expression of what you think, something that needs to be released from your experiences or feelings. And I think it's one of those things where art is completely subjective, where it doesn't matter what you're creating as long as you get to kind of say what you're trying to say or express your feelings or emotions through whether it's sculpture or painting or dance or something like that. It doesn't have to be just an object. It can be a kinetic movement as well. So
Yeah, that's great. And there's so many different forms of art. I mean, like when people think of art, they're probably going to think of like painting and drawing and pottery, but there's so many different other forms of art that you can express yourself with, and that's basically what art is. It's a form of expression.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like art should be an expression form. Like I feel, if you don't express yourself, you're kind of holding that in, and people end up being depressed or angry or keeping what needs to be released out of them. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And have you always been interested in art from a young age?
Oh, absolutely. I could draw before I could talk. I was one of those kids that would draw pretty much on any math or science stuff like that. So at a young age, I was very into art, and my parents noticed at a young age that I had the ability, and they wanted to see where I went. And yeah, it flourished in high school, and then kind of developed into college. But at a young age, I could, basically drew before I could talk, and then showed my parents what I wanted. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Mm.
Like I started art when I was 4 years old. I started going to art classes. So
Oh, amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. And how old are you now? So
I'm 13.
that's crazy. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about your experience that you had from shifting from hockey to art and connecting more with God?
Yeah. It definitely, when God was transitioning me from hockey to art, definitely got a hold of me. I was kind of in a place of injuries and not playing and just all over the map. Never had my world rocked so much, and being that you're just like a piece of meat in hockey, and you have to perform every second, and it felt kind of hollow, like there was a void missing. And as I was developing through hockey, art was always on the back burner, and art, it was always there for me when I needed an expressive outlet when hockey wasn't working. But God pretty much told me that I had 1 year, and after my last year, and then I would transition into art. And it was pretty cool because I went through some huge valleys and some trials, but it brought me out to bringing painting and expressing myself to release all that emotions that I had, whether it was negative or positive. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's all
Mhm.
what art is all about. As I said before, it helps bring out your emotions.
Yeah.
And how does art make you feel?
Art makes me feel amazing inside. I know that in my soul, like my heart of hearts, that I have to paint and I have to create. Whether it is a form of my emotions, of whether it's negative or positive, I know that I have to create, and so it makes me feel different things. Like I've noticed some people say, "Oh, that painting's very like dark or very romantic," meaning like there's uh, a passion or driven behind it. Where then they're looking at another painting, go, "Oh, that's lighter, that's whimsical, that's very elegant and graceful." And some some paintings come out better than others, but depending on my emotional state as well. So whether you're angry and you want to just express and get it out of you, or if you actually want to are in a good state of mind and you actually want to produce and actually paint really well. So yeah, it definitely plays a toll on what you're painting, and how you feel.
Yeah, and um, art is very therapeutic and it helps with pain, anxiety, stress. So did painting and art help you get through the difficult times in your life?
Absolutely. I noticed in high school, there was a couple times where you go through some rough things, and especially college as well, and you're really trying to find yourself as like becoming a young adult, and molding yourself into who you think you are. And it's going to take some time, and painting helped me through that, like expressing myself at 3 a.m. in the morning, before school. And my art teacher allowed that in high school, which was very awesome. Like he pushed me beyond what I thought I could do it in high school, and he let me be who I was. And that was like an athlete but also an artist, and using those that combination to kind of produce and be desire like have a desire in painting. So it was very therapeutic for me to get out all my emotions that I couldn't express, especially through the athletic side. And in athletes, we don't talk about our emotions. It, we get hit and we just deal with it. When art was a good outlet for that.
Yeah, that's awesome that you were able to express yourselves and you had your art teacher as a great supporter.
Absolutely, yeah. He's one of a kind, that guy. So I have to thank him for where I am today. So
Definitely. And what are the differences you found in your life, like your behavior and your habits, when you were doing art compared to when you were playing hockey?
yeah, it very very different. I find that hockey is very competitive and very high intense sport, and you're always at a fast pace. So you're working out quick, eating quick, but you're also eating healthy, and having clear mind that way to perform really well. Where I try to adopt that into my art as well, is is if you want to have a like almost physical clarity, to have like mental clarity to actually paint and slow down. So I used my hockey sense of like, get my energy out, and then I can actually sit down and retain and have a moment of painting in kind of just a calm kind of sense as well. But yeah, it was different because I haven't really changed much that way. I still eat very healthy and clean. Obviously, like, you try to get through some of the pain and traumatic experiences you have through art as well. And that goes with hockey and eating, and there's times where you do drink and stuff like that. So it's you work through your stuff, and art and hockey helps that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you take what you've learned from your past experiences and apply them to what you're doing today from an artistic perspective?
Oh, absolutely. I find through my past experiences, I've learned from them, and I also can not necessarily dwell on them, but bring them back and tap into that emotional side of like, those were good experiences and I needed to get through them and I needed to go through them to be who I am today. So those have taught me almost like a huge resume of you're gaining all this experience to kind of all this knowledge to actually adapt and paint and stuff like that. So it's bringing those like each element in and kind of like either look to the future or in the present moment of like, those are new experiences where you do look into your past and go, well, that didn't work. That, that did. So it's kind of like trial and error. And you're kind of problem solving too as well. So yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Um, yeah, there was like a traumatic experience where I had a concussion for hockey and I couldn't I was kind of retiring at that point as well, and that's where God kind of transitioned me. And I couldn't find a job to save my soul in my degree, and it was very tough sense that way. And then God was like, "Well, why don't you just paint?" And so I ended up painting, and I kept painting my concussion out and expressing myself, and it definitely, because of past hurts, I got to almost bring back art again. That it was like this is a revelation of like, wow, like I get to express myself through art again, and I feel emotionally happy and letting go of things. So yeah, definitely all the things that have happened, I had to like almost use art and to let it go. So it was really cool.
That's amazing. And are there any other areas of art that you're drawn to?
Yeah, definitely. I love music. I use music all the time to paint and absolutely, and even dance. Like looking at some dancers and how they move kinetically, and they're very elegant in the way they flow, and even like Latin dancing, how spicy and how energetic that is, right? People can be so vibrant, and it doesn't have to be just forms like painting or drawing. Like even sculptors, like I have a huge admiration for just because they work in three-dimensional objects, and that's very hard to do. I've done it before, and it's very difficult for me, but I'm more of like a 2D painting kind of guy. But they're very passionate people as well, and goes to show like even a person that designs stairs or designs homes, like that's still creative in its sense. So
Yeah, and yeah, art is a creative outlet. And
mhm.
people, as you said, people that design stairs, I mean, someone wouldn't think of that to be art, but it is
Mhm.
art,
Right.
a creative outlet. Yeah. And are you attracted to any particular artist?
Yeah, actually there's many like William Turner, his romantic period ships are really cool. um Van Gogh with his thick paint, he's very someone you kind of have to not look up to, but just the way he used color and how thick his paint was and his style that was never like beyond his time. So, and then I'd have to say, although like Caravaggio with his lighting, his dramatic lighting, that is huge because it almost like was the forefather for what we do now, and Rembrandt kind of perfected that. So those two artists to me are huge influences. There's a whole ton of others, like even how crazy it is to have Jackson Pollock, right? He used his expression to actually take paint and whack it on a canvas and let it spray. and it was a form of like self-expressionism, how he had to get it out. Like, to me, that was a huge discovery in our, postmodern art world. So yeah, it's really cool.
As a painter, do you feel that when you look at other paintings, do you feel that you were able to sense the emotions?
Oh, absolutely. When I look at some paintings, like you are moved. I like recently I went to Paris, and there are some paintings where I just sat there for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and was very moved by it. Like, you could feel what the artist was trying to portray and say. And sometimes it brought tears to your eyes, just because of the fact that it's not because of the vast scale of it, even though some paintings are massive, but it was like the grotesque movement of like that hand or that pose. It was overused almost, and he was trying to portray something and illustrate that in that moment there is life and death. And it was very, very touching. It's very, even some of the French Revolution war paintings were just like, wow, are you kidding me? Like, those are so romantic in itself because they're so dark, and you just sit there and go, this is real. Like, they painted real life. So yeah, some of those paintings bring like a sensual like side of like, you're just in awe, but then in a negative sense, but then also in a positive sense. You look at some of these beautiful paintings that Monet did, and how colorful his palette was. Like, it's beautiful.
That's amazing. And is there one form of art that affects you professionally, and another form that affects you personally?
Yeah, music definitely plays a huge part and a huge influence on that. Especially with, I would have to say, like, if you're listening to dark kind of music like screamo or something like that, it definitely plays a huge role on your painting. Whereas like classical music, it's light and sometimes romantic as well. It will play a drastic part on your paintings. So music has a huge influence that way, where it will change the mood of the painting. And I would say that would be almost professionally and personally, because I consider my paintings very personal, but yet also pretty professional in the sense that I am selling, right? And so both, yeah, it would impact both personally and professionally.
That's great. And my Heartification project is all about giving back to the community, specifically to those with disabilities and illnesses, to make them feel special. So, how do you give back to the community?
Yeah, I was just this fall. I was painting. I was live painting for the Agoma project. They help Africans all across Agoma, and helping with schools and education, and providing nets so there's no malaria, things like that. So we raised quite a bit of money for them, live painting. There was also, I do a lot of like live charity events for painting as well. The one I'll be doing April 1st is Ernstein's. They are they're a women's shelter here in Toronto. So it's a nonprofit organization. I was live painting for them. I think it was last spring. So we donated a piece, and it raised money and awareness for women, and also abused children, to provide shelters and stuff like that. So I like to give back as much as I can. It's not always easy. There's tons of people that will ask you for donations all the time, and depending on where your heart lies for organizations, you definitely like to give back that way, and see a smile on someone's face when they actually win the painting, or they're so excited to like have something after an organization like that. So yeah, I like to give back as much as I can, and it's it's always nice to help other people as well. So
Yeah, definitely. And has art ever helped you heal in any way?
when I kind of started, uh, there's like a almost a 10-year period of where I used to be a very angry kid, and I just I was kind of like woe is me kind of thing, and things were happening to me very traumatically. But some of it's tough to say, but there was a point where I did have a breakup in high school, and I didn't know how to express myself because you're in a farming community as a country kid. You're taught to not show any emotion, and also hockey, and so you'd stay up so angry, and almost like to the point where insomnia was taking place. And so painting it out and using like Jackson Pollock's expression just to slap paint on was a form of release, and also like breaking that tension for me to instead of punching concrete walls, I was actually painting. And there's as men, we don't know how to express ourselves sometimes, so we like to be hidden that way. And I find the more you talk about things and the more you actually express yourself through emotion and motion, it actually it heals you. So yeah, there's tons of things. I had like tumors in my chest. I had to get out, and my teammates would make fun of me, stuff like that, and I didn't know what it was, and then I actually had to get them removed, and they kind of were like, "Whoa!" And there was a whole bunch of other things like concussions that played a huge part in suicide and depression. Just because your psyche is not with you, you're not the same person. And when you're sitting in a dark room for 4 months with a blindfold on, like ready to off yourself, it definitely takes a toll on you, and impacts your parents as well, like a ripple effect. And so you're pretty much warring with yourself. And painting allowed me to heal as well with that, and it took some time. It wasn't easy. It was about 8 months to a year almost healing each concussion, and it was definitely hard times in your life, but you got through it. Like, is as long as you hold on and you keep breathing, there will be times in your life that you will be tested, and you have to use your strengths, which could be an art form, and use that to heal. So we're all in the same boat. We're all broken people. We've all gone through some trials. I lost 5 friends in 8 months, and all through like traumatic experiences, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And that's kind of when God kind of found me through hockey, because I was at a point where I was suicidal, and I lost my last friend to suicide, and I had to 7 days after I had to go and play again and go to another country, and trying to deal with these men dying, right? Like, and so like drinking got involved, and partying a bit too much in college, and you just didn't know how to cope with these things because you're a young man. No one tells you how to like deal with it, right? Your coach just says suck it up because you're pretty much a warrior in a military. like so yeah, it was those things definitely impact your life, but painting almost saved me that way as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And was there a certain form of art that helped you cope with the loss of your friends?
Yeah. Like it was funny to me because it almost took like a slapping paint on and expressing, and almost using that as experiences to actually calm down, and then actually focus and get into the details of art, because you just have so much pent up aggression. And you can only fight on the ice so much, and then afterwards you go back home and you're lonely and you still have that. So that anger, that depression, that suicide, whatever it is, it's almost like a huge ball of venom or smoke, right? Or of something, and it's inside you and you just want to release it. So anyways, painting just kind of helped that. And then the more it's less, the more you can actually sit down and focus on the details and actually express yourself that way.
Yeah. And did your choice of color match what you were feeling?
Absolutely. Like I used to paint black canvases, and I started out black and white, and then I moved into black and white with like intense colors, like you said, reds or like blues or yellows or greens, like very high contrast. And then I started to get slow down and work with it and get into blues and soft pastel colors. And then after having surgery on my eyes to link my eyes back together and get new colors, I was after hockey, like I saw all new like a vibrancy of life. So it changed my focus and it changed my mindset as well, that I could actually see brighter colors, and I felt brighter and I felt more positive. So now I paint that way. So yeah, it's crazy what people go through, and each person has a story unique on its own. And just to sit down and listen to each person, like what they've gone through, and you think you've had it bad, but then you realize like someone else had it that much worse. You're like, you know what? Life's not so bad, and we're kind of all in this together. So it's amazing that you're starting your own organization and you're helping people at such a young age. So I commend you for that.
So how would you like people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can message me on Instagram at Michael Wills Arts, or through email, mikewillsdesign@gmail.com, or my website at www.michaelwillsart.com, and you can just message me on there. And I'd love to hear from you guys, whether it's inspiration or even if you're looking for something that way. So yeah, love to hear from anyone, and I might not message you right away, but I like to take time for people, because they like to hear what they're going through as well.
Thank you so much for being on this podcast.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.